Hey everybody, welcome back to Rebootleggers. This is a comedy podcast where we take media and reboot it into...
Give it new life.
Give it new life. I'm your host, Scott Owen.
I'm your other host, Frank Serra.
It's a big day for us. We're coming on 1 year of this...
Años.
This baby podcast, baby child show.
Mm-hmm.
And
our podcast is ready to start first grade. No, kindergarten. Sorry, kindergarten.
No, what? No, you don't start kindergarten until you're like 5.
It's been a while since I went to kindergarten.
No 1-year-old is going to school.
Our baby is old enough to eat solid food.
To start growing teeth.
I'm not a doctor, Scott. You can't. I don't know what you're expecting.
I think 1-year-olds can eat solid food, but solid food, like baby food, is basically anything that's not milk.
Like mushed yams.
Yeah, those count as solid.
Ugh.
Mushed yams.
Dude, people are like, why do babies say baby food? It's because it's gross. I don't know anything about babies. I don't know baby.
I don't know a baby.
So anyway, we have kind of an anniversary special prepped for these fine listeners, right, Scott?
We do, and the higher ups are starting to doubt our endeavors, and I think that fittingly for this anniversary episode, we could also use it as an opportunity to show, look, reboots are a good source of revenue. Like, reboots can be popular and successful. And so we've prepared this little presentation for just looking at the year, and there were a lot of reboots that came out this year, and so we're just gonna go through some of the top 2017 reboots and talk about what they're about and
strategy review. We're gonna see
we'll look at
how good they did.
Yeah, we'll look at the original. We'll look at the original, and I think we're gonna have a good time. So let me just pull up my list.
We got a couple today.
A couple lists?
A couple items on the list.
A couple items on the list. Yes. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You can start.
All right. So one of the big ones for me was the Beauty and the Beast reboot, which, as we all know, is it's a reboot of the popular Pride and Prejudice, a story about a young woman who is approached by a distasteful man, outwardly distasteful, but inwardly a real sweetie, but just does not know how to fully express that, and he has a lot of pride and she has a lot of prejudice.
But when you get the rich man.
But when you get these two kids together, shenanigans. You get
dancing furniture. Now, the original did not have dancing furniture.
No, the original did not have dancing furniture, nor did the original have a beast. And I think here's the thing: it should not have worked. I thought it was a bold choice to go that in your face with it, to show like, he's like an actual beast.
Yeah, it's really unsubtle. It speaks to a distrust of the audience that they, without actually showing him as being a gross beast, like maybe they won't get that he's rough.
Yeah, like they won't get that, oh, look, his outward appearance is unpleasant, but the inside of him is good. So they went like whole hog, if you will, on making him look...
Love hogs.
Make him...
And so it's been a while since I read the original. I think the guy's name is like Mr. Darcy, right?
Mr. Darcy.
He's the beast.
Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy.
Fitzwilliam. I'm glad they changed that in the remake.
I don't even think he has a name in the remake.
Yeah,
He's just a beast.
If my name was Fitzwilliam, I wouldn't really go around, yelling it from the rooftops either.
Yeah, that's probably true. They did also adapt it into a musical. The original Pride and Prejudice was not a musical, and they changed the names a bit, and by a bit I mean entirely.
Sometimes you just got to go from scratch, right?
And I mean, casting. I think Emma Watson did just fine in the lead. Dan Stevens nailed it as the Beast. You could not see him, but the CG was there, and the voice changer was also there. And it was good. It was I think it was a solid example of a good reboot, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I think musicals also just hold your attention a little bit better, I think, than just a dry plot, right? And the dancing furniture, I mean, that's an obvious cash grab for the kids, but really, I mean, that's what you got to do these days.
Yeah, you got to do that these days. That's just kind of the only thing you can do.
You got to just grab as many markets as you can, in this world of
markets.
Yeah. And grabbing and cash.
Yeah, and so
I mean, the new Beauty and the Beast really not much, not much different than we would have ended up doing with the original, I think.
Yeah, no, we definitely couldn't have done it any better. And I mean, it did very well. It's one of the highest grossing reboots.
Classic literature reboots. The whole of all.
Yeah, so Frank, what do you have?
Let's see. So the new movie that came out, Power Rangers. It was so it's interesting that they made it an act. The original was a comedy, right? So you've got Super Troopers, right?
Yeah.
So law enforcement, but it's a comedy. They took Super Troopers, they made it an action movie, and they didn't. The reboot was, I mean, there were some jokes, right? But it wasn't a comedy, not at all.
Yeah, it was a very interesting pivot, and they aged all the characters down significantly.
What was interesting was that they were no longer cops either. They just completely
they kind of took it. Well, it's interesting. They kind of went bigger with it, right? They went from being highway cops to now they're like planet cops almost.
Yeah, like Earth cops.
Which is it. I mean, I think that's kind of a cool thing to we went. They had this stretch of highway, and now is this? I think this was. I don't know. Maybe we're interpreting this film differently, but I interpreted this to be more of a traditional reboot rather than a remake. Like this is.
Yeah, this is taking the original property and just really spinning it into something different.
Well, and it's like it's in the same continuity. Like Super Troopers still happened, and now
these are the new troopers.
These are the new ones. Yeah,
introducing two female troopers as well, I think was really good.
Definitely could use more female representation for sure.
Yeah. So what was interesting, I liked they were in the background. There were a couple little callbacks to the original, but I liked that they weren't overt with it. They weren't
very
in your
subtle
face
with
about it.
They did not slap you in the face with it. They kind of just winked and smooched you on the cheek with it.
Yeah, if you'd never seen Super Troopers and then you watched Power Rangers,
you'd have no idea.
You would barely know they were related.
Which is good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do a reboot. You don't want to require your audience to have seen the
yeah, because it kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, it defeats the purpose, and it makes it hard to get a new audience. You're relying.
You want to
on
rebuild
the
a base.
What did you think of the addition of robot dinosaurs?
Well, it's tough. I mean, so the movie as a whole kind of upped the suspension of disbelief in the world, right? In the original, there was no space talk at all. There were no aliens. There were no robots. I definitely think that this progression was in the spirit of the original. I mean, the original was a little ridiculous,
It did have its absurdity.
Yeah, and so kind of this is something that a lot of sequels do, which is that they feel that they need to level up their next movie, right? And as the Transformers franchise has shown, more robots is almost always a good answer.
Yeah, that's true. More robots, smoking
more
cigars.
Robots, space,
dinosaurs, robot dinosaurs.
Robot dinosaurs. Robot Dinosaurs was probably Transformers. Robot Dinosaurs was probably the best Transformers movie.
Optimus Prime rides a robot dinosaur.
And so in this one, all the dinosaurs make a man, and I like that. I mean, I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
They do. And I also liked that a lot.
Yeah, the dinosaurs making a man. I liked a lot. I really dug it.
All right. All right. So next on the list is The Shack. Now, this movie came out in March earlier this year, and this is another, I think, kind of dovetailing
big genre
off of
shift.
Yeah, dovetailing off of Power Rangers and talking about big shifts. This was a huge shift from the original. Now, in the original Caddyshack, that is 100% a comedy. You've got Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, Rodney Dangerfield. It's almost
real
like
madcap.
It's very madcap. There's no
and irreverent too,
for sure. And there's no single narrative in that movie. It's more just like here's a bunch of people at a golf course. We're gonna look at the caddies. They get their story that's going on. While here's the rich people, and then also here's the groundskeeper who's trying to kill this gopher. And I mean, the thing that ties them all together is the caddy shack where all the caddies live. And so for the reboot,
the shack itself is really one of the only things that survives the transition.
Yes, and so they take the shack and the implied, spiritual, metaphysical properties of the shack in the original of the Caddyshack, and they take it all the way. Where now, you go to the shack and you meet God. You meet God in the form of a kindly black woman.
And this is a real shift too in message, I would say. I think that Harold Ramis, the original Caddyshack director, he kind of handed off the reins here.
Yeah.
But I still think he was involved. I think this speaks to a big spiritual shift in his personal life, like Kirk Cameron said.
Yes, for sure. Like
I think he really,
you could tell he really had a. I'm curious.
He felt that he had something to say.
Yeah, and I'm curious to read about his story now to find out, what happened that you went from this. Hey, everybody, we're all going to get laid. To my child daughter has been killed, and I have to speak to God in the woods to deal with this.
It's a really interesting ride. I really can't wait for the VH1 special behind this.
Yeah, Octavia Spencer nails it. It's an interesting, like we said, like it's a good reboot in that you don't have to have seen the original. It's kind of just the only thing that carries over is the shack itself, and
the shack.
It's now like 40
and in both
years
movies,
later.
It is the focal point.
Yeah, and now
it's the kind of rallying point for all the characters.
Right, and in the shack, it's 40 years later. The golf course has clearly been shut down. There's no one golfing there. It's just, but the shack is still there,
and it still has power.
It still has power,
and
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a bold move, and I mean, it worked out.
It worked out for him, I think. Well, actually, I don't know that it did, because the
Shack did not make a lot of money.
Well, no, actually, I think it is a success. Its budget was only $20 million, and it made 96, so it more than quadrupled its budget.
I think Harold Ramis, I really get the sense that he remade this movie for him.
Now, hold up. I'm now just realizing that name. Are you telling me that Egon from the Ghostbusters directed that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, all right. He directed Vacation and Groundhog Day? Oh, my God.
Yeah, he did stuff.
Oh, the final film that he wrote, produced, and directed was Year One. Oh, Harold. Not a great
That movie did not get very good reviews. We haven't touched that movie yet.
We haven't. Maybe we should in a future episode.
Maybe it should be on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Frank. Hit me with your next list item.
Let's see. You know what? So let's swing it the other way. So we talked about two lighter movies that became more serious. Now here, this is a serious movie that became much lighter. So let's talk about The Boss Baby.
Let's talk about The Boss Baby.
So The Boss Baby, it's not only. It not only lightens up the original movie, Wall Street, but it switches from live action to animation as well.
Yeah, which is not a common thing.
No, it's usually the other way, right?
Yeah.
If at all.
If at all. And usually, I've seen it before where a sequel is or a reboot is an animated version of a live action one, but it's almost always straight to DVD or straight to TV.
It usually indicates a lack of success. So, one interesting thing, I really liked Alec Baldwin's turn as a young Gordon Gekko, right? So this was a reboot, kind of a slash prequel, starring a baby Gordon Gekko, which in an interesting move was just Alec Baldwin's adult voice.
Yeah, and
I liked it a lot, though.
I liked it too, and I think one criticism I have that I think it kind of similar to Beauty and the Beast is that they kind of they do have a little bit of a message there, and they don't go subtle with it. In this one, they're clearly saying, "Look at this baby." Like, this man is not.
Look at him.
He's a baby. Like, he's just a baby. He just wants what he can't have.
A little too dumbed down, a little too overt to kind of cater to modern.
Right. They're like, you know what else is selfish and only cares about itself? A baby.
Babies. Yeah, the original was a lot. It was a lot more serious.
Yes,
and there wasn't an overt, message. It was just kind of watching the noose close around this cutthroat business shark, right?
Yeah.
But in Boss Baby, it's kind of it does, all kids movies kind of swerve this way, but there's no hard consequences for young baby Gordon Gekko's actions. He kind of gets out clean in the end, and I guess as a prequel, the character always has to survive.
Right, you kind of have to let him make it, otherwise
it kind of removed the tension. It turned it more into like a fun ride rather than an examination of the man.
At no point was I actually worried about this boss baby's well-being, because I knew, I've
the baby
seen
was
Wall
going to be
Street.
the boss.
Yeah,
that was part of the tagline.
I've seen Wall Street.
This baby's the boss. Everyone was saying that all the time.
Yeah, they're like that. I mean, and that is another thing. So
yeah,
they did like to say the tagline a lot.
Turning Charlie Sheen's character from the original into his actual brother was really cool.
Yeah,
too.
his actual older brother too. And in the original, Gordon Gekko is Charlie Sheen's like mentor, and then they kind of flipped it where now Charlie Sheen is his character, at least not the actor, is the literal older, adoptive brother. They're not.
Yeah.
But still, it was very interesting.
Yeah. It was a really interesting twist.
I agree. Okay, so next up on the list, I want to talk about Kong Skull Island.
Okay, yeah.
This is a movie.
Now this is a remake of a classic. Actually.
Yeah, so this is the next. It's the next in a series of reboots. Well, I guess that they already rebooted Planet of the Apes, right? And then you had War for the Planet of the Apes, and then
Rise of the Planet of the Apes,
right? And so then the next one they did is Kong Skull Island. So
the next step in the progression, getting to the original '60s movies where apes rule everything,
right? So it really helps explain how apes got there, because now it's like, oh, well, they had a giant gorilla that would do it.
Yeah, because like humans, humans have like planes and like tanks, and the humans had a lot of big machines, right? And so kind of the in Rise of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, and it kind of was swept under the rug that these apes with like AK-47s could like actually beat the U.S. military,
right?
And you're kind of wondering the whole time, like, well, eventually someone is gonna like bring in a tank or like drop a bomb. Like, why hasn't this happened yet?
Right.
And you kind of see that all of those resources has been tied up fighting the King Kong.
Right. It turns out that there's this giant gorilla, and
huge. And he's from an island that's like the Rampage video game. That's like other giant stuff.
Right.
So then they trick the humans into coming.
So this is real news? We're going to just
break the show. This is real news.
You're aware of the Rampage reboot starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson? Oh my gosh. I saw the trailer and it looks so stupid. I love it.
That movie looks like something we would make, and I have to see it.
I have to see it. I played that video game when I would wait for my turn
So
at
many
laser
quarters.
tag. I'd go to laser tag, and that game was there, and I would play
You'd
it.
be like, Rampage.
I would play it until they called my group's color, and then I'd go in and I'd be like, yeah, laser.
And you just start putting dudes down.
putting dudes down.
All right, so unpause.
Unpause.
So Kong made a couple really interesting choices. One of which was bringing in John C. Reilly.
Yeah, he has been. So he's been. You know, he made his career as the comedy actor, right? Basically, the Mirrorverse Will Ferrell, who acted alongside Will Ferrell. Then we saw him in Guardians of the Galaxy, and
Just out of nowhere, too.
out of nowhere, and now he's continuing his thing with Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, he's jumping around a lot, and I mean he did an admirable job
As the
right?
Admiral, yeah.
Yeah, he did an admirable job. One thing though was that there was a lot of focus on the humans. The Kong was kind of set up as a force of nature rather than a conscientious, war
Yeah.
participant.
Yeah, I agree.
Which was really interesting that the humans, I guess, it's probably a social aspect too. The humans, even this late in the game, in the chronology, even at the step of Kong Skull Island, the humans didn't consider the apes to be equals fighting a war. They were just more nature for man to conquer. And that was a
Right.
really interesting take.
Yeah, it was not they kind of lost the plot of their message of this is a sentient group of individuals who are
There was some
rising up.
backpedaling. And now I did read that this movie specifically was handed off to a different director
Oh, okay.
than Rise and War of the Planet of the Apes.
That
So
explains.
I think there's some stuff lost in translation there.
Yeah.
And that the backpedaling is just a side effect of the story that he wanted to tell.
Yeah, I mean, pretty dynamite cast. Aside from
yeah.
John C. Reilly, you've got Brie Larson, who I love. You've got my boy Samuel L. Jackson and Tom Hiddleston.
His first entry into the series.
yeah, surprisingly.
yeah.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't get him sooner. I think they should have. It was kind of clear.
Yeah,
that
the
we were
line
missing Sammy
get these giant apes off my plane. I think it was a little bit misplaced for the tone of the movie.
Yeah, and it was a, it was a weird
everyone
callback.
everyone wanted it, and the people in the theater did clap when I saw it. But I think it's only in there because people expected it.
Right. All right. What's next?
Let's see. A really good movie. I personally loved it. The new Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, loved
The new one?
Loved
Yeah.
it.
So probably the most interesting thing to me was the kind of soft rewrite on the universe. There were no vampires, and in a pretty controversial move, Blade changed from being a black guy to a white guy. They got Ryan Gosling instead of Wesley Snipes.
The way I interpreted it was, it's in the future. This is actually very interesting. We have two different interpretations of this movie where I saw it as, vampires are still there, but now they call them replicants, right? It's in the future. So now they pretend that, like, I saw it as we're covering it up. We're telling the public vampires aren't a thing. We just have all these superhumans who we tell them are robots that we're making.
That makes this make a lot more sense.
And then they kind of, I think this was just
it's an easier truth to swallow.
Yeah, and then I think the Blade Runner is a title that's paying like homage to the original Blade, like in universe, a Blade Runner. There, it's like a recruit of Blade.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, I didn't really consider how far in the future this was, where Blade is kind of now a legend.
Right. Yeah, he's kind of a legend, and
it's been at least 60 years, if not more.
Right. It's been a long time, and it's kind of a, the Blade Runners, they hunt other replicants, other vampires, and so. It's almost like, a blade, like they're calling all vampires blades even.
Blades. I mean, the original Blade himself was a vampire, and that's an interesting thing is that...
Yeah, half vampire.
half vampire. I'm sorry, and then, so that is something interesting they twisted as well. So Ryan Gosling's character was a full vampire, what the movie calls a replicant. And they played very well with what being a vampire meant, as opposed to a human.
Yeah, I respect your ability to dodge those spoilers there. And for
anyone that hasn't seen it, actually, it really is good.
It's very good. And
a lot of reboots and a lot of sequel reboots, kind of. You don't need to see the original for this one. I highly recommend watching Blade.
Yeah, watch Blade, just the first Blade. You only need to see the first one and then watch Blade Runner.
The rest of watch the first Blade to just really soak in the details.
Blade Runner kind of acknowledges, like, they kind of pretend Blade 2 and 3 didn't happen.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
It keeps it cleaner.
I would have liked to see Ryan Reynolds at least get a cameo in Blade Runner.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Just, put him in as many things as possible, I say. But he
non-podcast jokingly, I love him.
Me as
love
well.
him.
Casting wise, Ryan Gosling, very good.
Yeah, he kind of turned. I think I'm not sure. I'm not deeply intimate with Ryan Gosling's IMDb page or anything, but I think starting with Driver and now in Blade Runner 2049, he's kind of pivoted to a more
action-y role.
Stoic action role, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. I liked it very, very much. Was Harrison Ford supposed to be Blade?
That is something that I really wasn't sure about, because it was a big casting change. Now, nothing against Harrison Ford. He's obviously got his chops, but I mean, Wesley Snipes is still around, right?
Yeah, and that's a pretty egregious case of whitewashing if that's the case. Like, Blade aged into an old white man for some reason, and I think so. I mean, there's a lot of debate, right? Whether he's supposed to be Blade.
They never confirm.
They never confirm, and so I choose to believe that no, he's not, because I want to think better of the writers.
Yeah, because it's a big decision.
It's a big decision, and I just think it'd be very insensitive to have Blade age into an old white man. I think it's
intentionally vague in a way where they don't fill in all the spots on the map of the movie,
right?
And I can respect that.
I also can respect that. I respect it a lot. All right, Frank, let's talk about my favorite movie of the year. And that movie is Baby Driver.
Oh, so good.
Baby Driver is a masterpiece of writing.
Beautiful use of music.
Music, cinematography.
Soundtrack.
Edgar Wright remains my favorite director of all time. Fittingly, this is a reboot of one of my favorite childhood movies, Baby's Day Out, which I saw on my 5th birthday with my friends. I was talking to you about this earlier. I have a very vivid memory of my dad took us all to the Burger King down the street from my house. We got Burger King kids meals because I did not like McDonald's. I liked Burger King. We got Lion King toys. I got Ed the Hyena. This is all like coming back to me right now, like how much I'm remembering about this. I got Ed the Hyena, and he had like movable legs that like made him jump or something. And then we saw Baby's Day Out in the theater. And also looking back on this memory, it blows my mind that my father by himself took a bunch, like 5 to 6 year olds to see a movie, and how horrible that sounds. But so original Baby's Day Out, some hooligans, kind of Wet Bandits-esque guys.
You're ineffective, but family movie criminals.
Yeah, they kidnap a baby from a very rich set of parents. A rich baby, and they hold him ransom. And the baby gets out, and he he's just crawling all around New York in one of. It's kind of like the Animaniacs cartoon about the dog that was and the little girl.
No.
So there's a little girl who basically like every episode she gets out of her like stroller or whatever and then just starts wandering, and the dog is like
farcical.
Yeah, it's very farcical. The dog's like chasing her all the time, like saving her from all these things that she's not aware are about to kill her.
Yeah. like crawling down the street, and then there's a manhole, and then they rush and like put a board down, and the baby just keeps going because it doesn't even know.
Exactly. So this is similar to that, except it's different in that there's nothing saving this baby. He's just getting by everything, oblivious to all these things, and then the bad guys are the ones who get hit by the things.
Hearing it summarized that way too makes it so much more clear that the spirit of the original carried through.
The spirit of the original carried through, because now instead of, a baby haplessly crawling his way through danger, we have a grown man nicknamed Baby, who is an expert getaway driver.
Which is a pretty good callback. It's a believable nickname.
It's a believable nickname. And it's got that criminal element to it too. He's a getaway driver instead of being kidnapped himself.
And again, he's just getting in and out of danger like crazy. It's so seamless that you almost wonder if it all is just by accident.
Right. It's kind of like...
And again, same as the original. The original soundtrack was just spot on.
Oh, spot on. For especially,
It really... So I think we did a small amount of pre-show prep on our list. Mm-hmm. One of the things we found out, if you remember me telling you this earlier, Baby's Day Out was the biggest American movie in India.
Yeah, which is really interesting.
It beat Star Wars.
Which is very interesting, because I'm looking at the numbers, and it surprisingly is a flop. Its budget
tanked in the United States.
It only made back 1/4 of its budget. No, not 1/4, 1/3. Its budget was $48 million, and it only made 16. Like that is a fail.
And I gotta say, the studio really took a risk on picking up this. I mean, ostensibly failed property, right? And then flipping it.
It was a risky move and a surprising move to say, hey, let's take this thing that failed and try it again. But they did,
and it paid off a lot.
They nailed it.
It's an excellent movie.
Yeah. Unironically, Baby Driver is my favorite movie of this year. It is a very great movie.
Yeah, pause the podcast again. Great movie.
Amazing
Actually
film.
Good, not a joke. Good
Amazing
movie.
film.
Unpause the podcast.
Unpause the podcast. All right, Frank, what do you got? I think we got time for one, maybe two more.
One more?
One or two, yeah.
All right, so this is going to be a big one. Mm-hmm. So we had a little bit more documentary centered, but still a reboot in a very interesting way from the studio. We have Al Gore's An Inconvenient Sequel. Mm-hmm. Subtitled Truth to Power. So this was interesting in that it takes the material from the original and it presents it in a documentary format. I'm not going to say mockumentary because it's not a comedy.
Yeah. It's not very jokey at all.
But it's a documentary film format, but it is obviously fiction because it's based on Dan Brown's
Da Vinci Code.
Very popular Da Vinci Code book. Now, what's interesting is that usually for things like this, they'll reboot one of the original movies. Mm-hmm. This went back to the source Dan Brown novel and did it fresh as if the first movie just didn't exist.
Yeah, it's more of a remake than a reboot, like a second chance. It's I mean, they fall into similar categories. So I would call it a reboot, but it's the remake style. Mm-hmm. I will say it was an odd choice giving it such a... It's almost like
the title of the movie didn't
it's almost a
really
fourth wall breaking title. Mm-hmm. Like they're like, yeah, we're doing another one.
Yeah.
And it's inconvenient.
It's inconvenient. Recasting Tom Hanks as Al Gore as well, swapping the main
making Al Gore the Tom Hanks character. Like Al Gore can't be cheap. I feel like he's got to be more expensive than Tom Hanks.
Yeah. And I think too that obviously there's nothing wrong with Tom Hanks' performance. He's a great actor. Mm-hmm. But Al Gore brought a very different energy to the material.
Very, very different energy. And
just a different approach to the material as well. There's less plane rides and rooting through museums and more PowerPoints.
More press conferences. And it's kind of just a whole, like, it's inconvenient for our main character. It's a little inconvenient for you to have to bring your notepad to keep track of all the clues, because that's the thing about this new reboot.
Yeah.
They don't solve the mystery.
No, it was a really interesting, almost like the Clue movie. You know, they kind of they kind of have a meta element. In the original Clue movie, it was, which ending are you going to see? Like, which ending are you going to get?
Yeah, this one was, we don't show you the ending at all. You need to have been keeping track, trying to notice the hints and
we'll
stuff.
We'll show you the Da Vinci Code, but you have to solve the code.
You have to solve the code. And that is, as an audience member, incredibly inconvenient.
Yeah, and usually for stunts like this, there'll be some kind of write-in contest or online challenge with a prize, and they didn't do anything with that. They just said, if you want the code, solve it.
And tell us about it on Twitter, I guess.
For your own satisfaction.
Yeah.
Unless you figure out the code, we're not going to tell you.
We're not going to tell you. And that is, it was a bold choice, for sure. Again, like, this is, I would almost say this is more of an auteur, like they're not trying to be.
Yeah, I think they were shooting for Sundance on this one.
Yeah, they were being a little more successful. Now they did, like, they went bare bones with it. Only $1 million, $1 million budget. Let me look. The compare that to the original Da Vinci Code movie. The budget on that film was $125 million. So it said 1.25% of the budget of the original movie. The original movie septupled. Sextupled? What's 7? Sex?
Septupled.
And so, but the new movie, they quintupled their budget. The budget of $1 million, they made 5.2. That's 5.2.
That's money.
That's money.
I almost wonder if this was an intentional move to kind of reset the budget for the series.
Yeah.
If future instances are also going to be this budget conscious.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I think they're reaching for a very specific target audience. They're most reboots try to broaden their audience, and this one seemed to be narrowing it.
Yes.
And yet it found success. It returned 5 times the investment.
And they did, it did, like you said, it debuted at Sundance and did well. All right, so I think that's going to do it for our year in review, reboot view, if you will. Thank you, just everybody, for the coming with us on this journey for the past year. We've got a lot of ideas for the years to come. Hopefully, we'll go bigger and better, or maybe we won't. Who can say?
Yeah, we'll see.
But
you'll have to listen to find out.
But I hope we do, and I hope you'll join us for another year of reboots, seeing us claw our way back to the top of the NBCW. So, as always, you can find us on Twitter at Rebootleggers, and if you like the show, please take a sec and go on iTunes and give us a rating and review, and tell a friend about it. We would very much appreciate that. It helps us out a ton. So until next time, I'm Scott Owen.
I'm Frank Sarah.
And Frank, what's our password for this week?
I'm trying out something new. So our password for next week is going to be something I'm trying out in a series of new year 2 catchphrases that I'm workshopping.
I like it.
So this week's tryout is keep booting it.
Nice.
Keep booting it.
Keep booting it. All right. See y'all next year. But like reboot year, not calendar year.